Hey, Chris and Bill here, getting ready to do the steering bearings on a GL 1800. I'm not sure why Honda makes the best motorcycle on the planet and puts that crap in there, but we're going to fix that with some all balls bearings. So we are going to show you how, step by step, to get down in here, to get at your bearings and all the parts that you got to replace. And that will also include taking all of this off, including the tire and pulling forks and all the parts. So we're going to show you how to do that, and we'll get started on this project. All right, here is your parts list. You need a 12mm wrench, a ratchet, work light. I would buy the lock washer, some extensions, Phillips head, 456 Allen head. I use this on the plastic shroud to get it broke loose, and then the shorty to get it off. 8, 10, 12, 14 sockets, 22, 30, and the specialized head stem socket. This you can drive your races out with an extension, put a socket on there to protect your extension. And that is your tool list you will need for this job. All right, now to get in here where the working parts are. There's just some grommets that you gotta pop loose. The same thing here, they'll just pull out. Wiggle it just a little bit. Tweeters here are little plugs. There's a rubber boot on that. It's gotta come loose. And then once you get to that, you should be able to unplug the tweeters.
Got a little tab you push in.
Slide right out. Yeah, slide right out. That's the key.
Get the hack.
Okay, this tab right in between the horns, you just want to push that down and it slides right off. You just got to push that down. There'll be one more wire right here, and there's a tab right there you're going to release, and I'll show you that in a second. Same thing, your instrument panel control buttons, just push that down and it'll slide right off of that wiring harness right there, which will have to come loose later, but for right now it slides right out of there. So we are going to pop the instrument cluster out. There'll be 4 8mm bolts. One seems to be missing there. I think somebody has already taken it out. We'll pull that loose and show you the plugs and the wire taps and where you got to pinch those. All right, the instrument cluster, once you take those 4 bolts out, will come loose. You have to get back. We're going to show you the clips on the wiring harness where it plugs into the back of this cluster. We'll show you which clips. There's a weatherproof boot on it that you just have to slip back to get at the pins, and just got a little tab on it you got to release and pull it right off. Okay, you're going to have these 2 on the back of your cluster. These pins right here is the tab you have to get to, just to push that down and they'll slide right out. Okay, once you take that dust cover off with the 2 Phillips heads, you're going to want to take a picture of this or refer to this video when you go to put it back together. All of these clutch, throttle, brake, electrical go in a certain place. The throttle goes up under here. Take a picture of it, do yourself a favor, because when you go to put that back together, you're going to go, where does this wire go, or where does this go? And it's not always self-evident there, so take a picture. Okay, so your pinch bolts are 12mm. This is your signal canceling, just a weather boot that pulls right out. This will unplug when we go back down. That wire is down there, and that will come out of that tube when we get ready. And all this plumbing and stuff, these handlebars will come loose in a moment, and then we'll be take this loose and get out what we need to get at. All right, your signal cancel wire that goes down to the bottom, just push there, and well, I said push there and pull. It was simple a minute ago. There we go. It was simple. And then that'll just pull through. Okay, going back to make this for you, but these two screws come out. This lifts off. You can access the two 8mm bolts that mounts this bracket that prevents that tree from coming off. You do not, I repeat, do not need to take everything apart on your Goldwing to do this. This pops, you get right to them, simple as pie. Okay, we did not show taking the 14mm bolts out that hold the handlebars on. Just get you some towels. Watch the video. Your top of your tree will not come off with this bracket on there. So watch the video where they took the whole scallops, the whole covers, and that's way involved. There's two screws, bolts right here, Phillips heads. That pops out. Unplug your tab wire there. Hold this back. The 8mm bolts go right there and right there. You can reach it, and then you can have to wiggle that a little bit. I'm not going to do it on camera or Bill while you do it. Wiggle that just a little bit. That comes right off. You are welcome. Don't take the whole thing apart. Don't ask how we know this, but this bolt right here with the rubber washer goes in the lower hole. It's obviously longer and it's made different, but if you take everything apart and don't mark it, then you may just happen to put them in the wrong hole when you go back together. Not sure, you know, maybe we heard it from a guy. All right, we have, as you can see, the front fender off, and we are getting ready to take the brake calipers and all that assembly apart so that we can get the front wheel off. You're going to need a 4mm Allen head to take your anti-dive, 6mm Allen heads here. The pinch bolts for the wheels are 12s, and the right side bolts are 12mm. You're gonna have to take all of this loose to get the front wheel off. And if you want to watch a very detailed video on that, there are many of those out there on YouTube land. Okay, we are ready to take the front wheel off. There is a hole here that a screwdriver fits in nicely for this pin. I bet there's a fancy tool, but Phillips head works fine. These loose, these pinch bolts loose, this nut bolt out. It's going to look like that right there. Comes out from right there, and then should just be as simple as pulling that out. And you have spacers on each side, so you'll have to get those back in there, and brake calipers have to be loose or the wheel will not fit out. So you're going to want to get those off, get them out of your way, and pull it right out. Okay, this rear fender piece is going to want to be out of the way. So these two bolts here, which are 8s, there's two that match it over here. Pull those out, and then you can lift that and twist it around and pull your rear fender section out. Once you have your brake calipers loose, both sides, these brackets loose, we're going to pull the fender. I'm going to hold these out of the way. Bill's going to work that out. Being very careful to scratch it as little as possible. Just a little Jenga puzzle. Yeah, pick it up above the forks where you got a little bit of space, and then twist it sideways. It should come right out for you. So what we're doing now is supporting all of the brake rotors and all the plumbing for that, because this is going to have to come loose to get the trees out and all the bearings. So we're going to get a bungee across here, run it over these hoses here, the metal hoses, and then support that so that there's no extra pressure on any of your plumbing. All right, if you can see the top screws on that plastic shield, you can use a flex screwdriver, a bent one there, or a flex, and just break them loose, and then you can get a little shorty in there on it and finish the job. So the two bottom screws on that plastic shield right here hold the turn canceling mechanism for your signals. There will be an 8mm bolt in the back that holds that mechanism, and it goes into those bottom bolt brackets of this plastic shield. All right, so you have the two 12mm pinch bolts there, each side. Get those loose after the top's loose, and those will fall off in your lap. So you get your forks off, ready to do some business on all this plumbing here. Okay, here's your lock washer and your head nut. These little tabs right here that Bill's getting at with the pick are just for locking that down. The top one, they say you just don't really tighten that one at all. We go back together, we'll talk about that process. As you can see, when we take it apart, it's that loose. It's just a locking nut. It does not have to be that tight. So I'm gonna take that one loose, pull that out. Buy yourself a new one of these. This one doesn't look horrible, but we have a new one to put back on so that it will lock that down. And we're gonna take this loose. It takes this socket. It's about 35, 40 bucks. If you're gonna be fooling with the Honda Goldwing that has this on there, you're gonna wanna buy that. So this nut right here is the last one that should be holding our trees in, and we will take that loose and get her out where we can get at it.
Moving?
Yes. All right, so I'm gonna drive the race back, go to the back, and drive the race out so that we can get the new stuff in and be good to go. Just take a long extension, works fine. That's the tool of choice, and a baby hammer, I guess. You don't need a big hammer.
Okay, so we're on the top side now.
All right, put it back on. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, there you go. Just like that, races are out.
Okay, I'm no mechanic, but I play one on YouTube, and this is what Honda thinks is good, and this is what All Balls Racing Company makes. If you haven't done this, do this. This is going to take care of all of your wobble at low speeds and at deceleration speeds where you have the horrible situation. 01 to 17 Honda. Thank God you redesigned the 18 and up, but you could have done better than that. All right, I took a little Dremel, made a couple of cuts. You don't want to go too deep and get into your stem, but if you get it deep and then you can kind of drive or get a groove, not too deep, kind of drive out. See, it's popped loose there, and see how it's loose now? Once you get that little wedge in it, up, and then you're going to be able to pull that right up. All right, now we got to pack grease down in that crevice. Gonna just keep pulling at it, keep running it in there until it starts coming out this back side. When it gets coming out the back side, you know you're good. I've got to get to work it around, and then we'll be ready to go put them in. Okay, so we use the old race that we've split and was able to pop loose with a chisel. I used PVC pipe. The thought of metal was driving me nuts, and just drove that down till the bearing got down seated, and we are good to go with this to go back in. All right, the new races are driven in, top and bottom. We've got some tapered drivers. Some people say don't do that, but it will work. But if you want to buy a bearing, race puller, wear it out. A lot of money, but this will work. All right, we have the lower tree on. We have put this specialized nut on. You want to buy that socket again. We have torqued it to 28. I know on my 02, we torqued it to, I think, 25. All balls recommends 28 to 30. So they make the better bearing. I'm going to go with them. We are going to use a new washer. This is the old one. Can't really tell. It's compressed a little bit. So I am going to use a new one. I have it. So they recommend you use the new one. So we're going to go ahead and put this on. This nut goes on top. This lays down those tabs. There's 4 tabs on that nut. This goes on. Spin it down. This one does not get any torque. We're going to use the socket when it touches, and we're going to just tighten that down till you feel that washer compress, and then we'll pull that tab up into that. So next step, get them back together. We're going to be on the road here in a little bit. Okay, so we have just slid the forks in to make sure everything's square. This nut here is going to get 78 here in a minute, if Mr. Beal can ever get where he likes to be happy. Oh, there she is, 78. And now we can line the heights of the forks up now that everything is in place where it should be. So all of our brake lines and other gadget lines that go up front, these 8mm bolts, just bolt that right in there, and then everything will be mounted back. All right, so we put the fender back in the way it came out, twisted up here on the shiny parts of the forks. There's a little more room. Twisted back down. We had all the brake lines held out of the way. So you've got these 2 bolts on each side, 4 in total, 8mm, that hold the rear fender on. You've got these 2 for this block. This will go on after we get the wheel on. On this side, you've got 8mm here and here. You've got your 2 brake line, everything to do with our brakes here. This one will go in here after we get the wheel on. You have to leave the brake calipers apart. And we're just about ready to go for a ride. All right, we are a little closer now. We have the front wheel on. Plenty of videos to watch that. The axle bolt, it does just opposite of what we showed you on the way in. We have the brake calipers mounted back up here. You see that one there. These 2 are the bolts we took out. It goes back together. The anti-dive's back on. Pinch bolts are tightened. Pinch bolts are tightened and torqued. Bill is getting ready to torque this side. Brake calipers. Once again, plenty of videos on putting a front wheel off and on that are awesome, but just go backwards if you need to. Okay, so now we're at the point where the top of the tree goes back on. This is where the picture comes in very importantly. These 3 go on the left side under the clamp. There's 3 over here that go on top of this tree under the clamp. These 2 here go under this piece. So make sure these go under, these are over. That's why you take the picture of it before. So yeah, don't mess that up, because if you do, trust me, the 02 was never right after the first time we did it. Okay, we have done a few things, just want to catch you up. This bracket is put in there that for some unknown reason to make it difficult, but you don't have to. We have not got the bolts back in it. We've got this back. We referred back to our picture we told you to take to make sure everything is back where it belongs. Everything fits great. Throttle cable under this top tree. Everything's the turn canceling is in there, plugged back in. We unplugged that earlier. Everything's run where it goes. I have been working out here on the front. Our forks are torqued. I think it's 26, 29. I'm going to get ready to put these bolts back into the turn canceling here and put those screws back in. This shroud, as you see, is slotted, so I can put the bolts in and slide this back into place up here. and we're gonna get some things back together and catch you up. All right, so we are good to go. Got our dust cover on now. These torqued. We found one that said 26. Gonna plug these back into that thing Mr. William has in his hand. Get the tweeters plugged back in. Well, hopefully this one will reappear over here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. And get the dust covers back on and have something that looks like a motorcycle up top. If you want to know when you're taking it apart, you know, you'll already be past that part in the video, but if you watch the whole thing first, there's your plugs.
Plugs will snap in, and those dust boots fit all the way down inside that well.
Yes.
And that's the important part of this, that they're
Yeah,
seated firmly.
make sure everything's seated in there. All right. Got it back together. Let's see if all the important parts are bolted back down. Go around the neighborhood. Make sure nothing falls off before we get her up to triple digits. As you can see, I can decelerate with hands off the handlebars, no wobble at all. It is as it should be. All right, so rode it around the neighborhood. Immediately pulling out of my driveway, it was better. The thing feels solid now. 40 miles an hour, let off the accelerator, hands off the handlebars, straight as an arrow. She's perfect. Low speed cornering around every corner is perfect. If you haven't done the all balls tapered bearings, I highly recommend it. It'll change your machine. Thanks for watching. I hope you find this helpful. If you did, please share in the comments, like, share, subscribe my page. Lochy Garage is another fine project, well done. Ask any questions you may have and I'll try to answer. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you guys.